elegant and graceful, with her head held high, rustling her silk skirts and clicking her little heels, she strode by once again. Not a glance, not a nod, and she even seemed to let out a sarcastic huff in the direction of the royal favorite. The young Dauphine of France, Marie Antoinette, stubbornly refused to acknowledge Madame Dubarry and did not speak to her. Meanwhile, Madame Dubarry was preparing to make her move. This Austrian princess needed to be put in her place. Jeanne Bcu, Countess Dubarry, reigned not only in the royal bedroom but also at Versailles. Charming, vivacious, and utterly devoid of shame, she knew how to entertain the aging King Louis XV, who eagerly showered his favorite with all manner of gifts. The beauty had her own quarters in the royal residence, a substantial income, a title, and the right to be recognized as the official mistress. Such elevation always invites envy and gossip, especially when there are things to latch onto. Jeanne provided ample fodder for scandal. A woman of low birth with a questionable reputation, the king's 3 daughters were particularly displeased. Unmarried, not particularly attractive, and deeply offended by the situation. Where princesses were meant to reign, some courtesan was calling the shots. When, in May of 1770, the Austrian Princess Marie Antoinette settled in Versailles after a grand wedding celebration, the king's daughters decided to use the newly minted Dauphine to further their cause in the battle against Dubarry. The young woman was inexperienced in court intrigues, and they managed to play on her sense of self-worth. After all, Marie Antoinette came from one of the most illustrious families in Europe, the daughter of an empress, and was preparing to become queen. Thus, a performance of ignoring Madame Dubarry began to unfold at court. The Dauphine would appear daily in the galleries of Versailles, warmly greeting familiar faces while pretending not to see or recognize the countess. At first, it seemed almost natural, but as days passed, Jeanne grew anxious. She didn't need Marie Antoinette's friendship, but she had no intention of being at odds with her. Indeed, her mother had warned the Dauphine before she left for France not to get involved in intrigues, not to dabble in politics. Certainly, Empress Maria Theresa was aware of Madame Dubarry's existence, but she had no idea that the favorite would become a problem for her daughter. It might seem trivial. Why should everyone be expected to love one another? Versailles is vast. There's plenty of room for the ladies to go their separate ways. Yet, Countess Dubarry was infuriated by the Dauphine's rudeness and, leveraging her influence over the king, began to complain about Marie Antoinette. At first, Louis brushed it off, but soon, he too became annoyed by the situation. Disrespect towards Dubarry. What was that? Disrespect towards the king himself? And from whom? From a little upstart who had just arrived, had yet to make her mark, and hadn't even produced an heir for France. The king summoned Madame de Noailles, who was assigned to Marie Antoinette, to clarify the local customs for her. At the same time, letters flew to Austria. The empress took the issue very seriously. Her daughter had yet to solidify her position in France and had no right to behave this way. Therefore, Maria Theresa of Habsburg promptly drafted a response. "My dearest daughter, make amends with Dubarry. Just say a single phrase to her. That will be enough to smooth things over." It proved incredibly difficult for Marie Antoinette to overcome her reluctance, and it took her several days to gather the courage. Finally, everything unfolded as if scripted. One evening, the messenger Mercy approached Countess Dubarry and struck up a conversation with her. After a quarter of an hour, a pale Dauphine appeared, greeted the messenger, and was just about to say a few words to the favorite when she was pulled aside by the royal daughters. The drama only resolved a few months later. Under immense pressure, Marie Antoinette finally managed to address Jeanne Dubarry in front of the entire court. "There are so many people here in Versailles today." The Dauphine had lost, and the favorite had triumphed. But peace had been restored, at least on the surface. However, following this incident, the humiliated Marie Antoinette vowed never to speak another word to the countess again, and she kept that promise.